We are live. Well, thank you for having a listen to this week's episode of Secure Insights with NDK Cyber. This week, joined by Shelley Langan-Newton, the CEO and co-founder of SQR. Shelley, welcome to the pod.
Hi, James. Thank you for having me. I'm thoroughly impressed by your previous guests, so I feel like I'm in like the footsteps of giants today.
Well, there you go. There's no pressure, just need to beat all the views in the previous episodes and we'll have a good time.
Well,
Yeah.
salute you.
Let's get some striking content out there.
Oh yeah.
Um, so I guess then, just before we dive into the whole bigger picture of things and everything, are you okay just to give us like a 20, 30-second overview of your story, who you are?
20 or 30 seconds, impossible. But I will try. I will try. I spent my first 10 years in my career as a performing arts teacher in education. I pivoted, we call that now. It was actually more like a terrifying leap into the abyss, but we now call it a pivot into tech and telecoms. And then I now find myself co-founding a cyber business in the field of identity. SQR.
Very nice. That was concise. You were lying. That was even
Oh
20
well,
seconds, I think. But
do you know what? It's very tough to not just give you my full TED Talk version.
the TED Talk, watch this space. Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess you pivot, yeah, or leap into the abyss, as you called it. I'm
yeah.
buzzing to get into this then. So I guess what got you into this track then? Like, what was that leap from performing arts to this world?
Um, so I always say that it's sort of like there's never one thing, is there? There was not like one thing. I woke up one day and just decided to like toss my 10-year career out of the window and go,
Yeah.
I know I'm going to do something have no idea what I'm doing in. But it was like I would say like a push pull and a bit of bravery mixed in. So I knew someone, a friend of mine, that wanted me to work for them. So they had been trying to convince me for 2 years to work for them, and they worked in telecoms. They were, well, are an entrepreneur still, but were an entrepreneur. Had six, seven, eight businesses, and I was like, "What's telecoms? I don't even know. Like, I'm just a teacher. Like,
Mm.
I just, oh, that's all I know how to do." And I had this real sort of poor perception of my skill set actually at the time, which was I didn't really know how it would move from one space into another. I obviously do know now,
Mm.
but at the time I just thought this is what I do, this is what I know, all I've done for 10 years. And so um but my son was getting two, so he was 10-ish, something like that, and he was wanting to spend his summers and school holidays at like football camp and not crafting with his mum. So I was like, well, actually, maybe it's time for me to have a change. Like it feel like a good time in my life. And someone was offering me a job, and I thought, wow, I don't have to reskill. I don't have to go and do some sort of night class or new degree or anything like that. Someone literally is saying, please help
Mm.
me. So I thought, well, why not? Took the leap, haven't looked back, loved it. Ended up what I loved most. Well, it's hard to say what I love most about working for Matt, who was my friend and boss, was just the sheer breadth of different types of things I would be involved in. Typically working for an entrepreneur, he would always say that his priorities were horizontal, not vertical. So
Okay,
he
right,
didn't
yeah.
have a priority list that went from here to here. He's like, everything's a priority. and and actually like that like interesting mindset, but the how do you keep all the plates spinning, basically, that is when everything is important. And you obviously have to prioritize, like, you're one human being, but how do you get the quick wins, how do you maximize your time? And what I love and what I'm really good at is solving problems, fixing tricky things.
Mm.
I now know that about myself. Love a puzzler in my downtime.
Nice.
Jigsaw, puzzle, anything like that, escape room, like that'd be my relaxing. So yeah, sort of fixing things, solving problems, absolutely addicted to it. And I don't think, especially in sort of the entrepreneurial side of things, I don't think you can get more. Um, yeah, there is literally a puzzle to solve every single day, literally.
I can see that being very relevant. Yeah. So, what was that first job then? Performing arts to telco space. What area was it
Yeah,
in?
Well, typically, everything was my
Okay.
actual job. A bit like, that there's like a meme at the moment going around like everything the sun touches is
The
yours,
Lion King thing. Yeah,
from the
yeah,
Lion King. Yeah,
yeah,
it was a bit like that. But I suppose technically, what he wanted was a number two,
okay.
that he could rely on and trust to go and do stuff. And that, so I was suppose his exec assistant, but then he was like, right, I'm going to put you in the marketing team, because the marketing team work across all of my businesses, all of the brands. And so you'll get to know all the stakeholders, you'll get to know what we sell, what we do, how we do it. And it was like an incredible. So I was in the marketing team, basically doing all the jobs that you get when you start any team, which is all the ones no one else wants to do
Mhm. Yeah,
as
yeah,
the
clean up.
newbie. Yeah. Yeah. And like, okay, we're going to write all this content for this new website. Off you go, Shelley. So yeah, so technically I was exec assistant, but it very quickly morphed into many things, many hats. And he'd come in one day, he'd be like, I've bought a yacht. We're going to start a yacht brokerage company. I was like, okay. How do we do that? And he's like, I don't know, but I've got this mate. Do you want to chat to him? I'm sure you'll figure it out. And like that was the whole just try things, try
Yeah, what a learning
experiment.
ground.
And oh, I mean, like it was like 10 degrees, like you couldn't have gone to uni and learned the
Mm,
things. I am so grateful for that. Things that, so he would be making investments in businesses, and I would be, I suppose, like going and doing investor relations, really.
mm,
Like I now know it's called that, but at the time I was, speaking to the investment and the company they invested in. It was so vast, and I just wanted to soak all that knowledge up like a sponge. So,
wow.
and I was there for a few years, and then thought, do you know what, okay, where's, I was sort of, okay, where's next, what's my skills gap, and I realized I did a big sort of like SWOT analysis on myself.
Mm, wow.
And when actually, like the finance side of business, I can't get my teeth into here. And so how do I do that? Where do I go and find that skill now? Like, how do I do that? So anyway, just as the universe would happen to have it, I was headhunted for a global satellite operator called SES.
Hmm.
They had their entrepreneurial investment arm on the Isle of Man at the time, which is where I live. And yeah, it was for an analyst role, a sales analyst. And I was like, oh, that sounds like I could learn about finance and money and things. So yeah, so I did that, and it was again amazing experience. But I don't think a global blue chip is maybe my sweet spot of where I love to work. Definitely in more entrepreneurial
Yeah,
environments for me.
I got you. I got you. And you're right, that first show you had there, like executive assistant in title maybe, but it sounds more like a chief operating officer or a chief of staff,
Well,
sort of
yeah, I think really
generalist,
what,
you
and
know?
he always, yeah, I would total generalist, and he would he would be like, I mean, I think I had like maybe I had 6 or 7 job titles, and he was like, I don't really care what your job title is. Like it was like, these are the things
Yeah.
that we need to do, just go do them. And if you need to give yourself a job title to make that go further, and so I think at one point I was like global numbering executive or something like that, because we'd set up this like new numbering platform, and I was like I was involved in like the lead generation, the go to market, and it was like I was on the phones, answering the leads that were coming in, and it was just yeah, it was like just needs must really. And obviously role like titles are important, but also like they're you can get a bit hung up on them
Mm.
sometimes. But yeah, it's difficult. We work in a world where we want to put someone in a box, so it's difficult to
Does
navigate that.
doesn't always work out that way. So what got you on the whole SQR? I guess what was that inflection point of this is a
Yeah,
problem,
so
let's solve it, you know?
yeah, so coming so after I'd been at the satellite operator, I went to be managing director at a mobile network operator. So it's a fledgling operator that had a license but not really the engine. So I joined the team as we were building that out. So building a mobile network operator from scratch was a fascinating journey, and also really helped me understand the data flow around, like, how do you securely move data around the world, and how does the internet work actually, like how does it work? And I'd never ever had to sort of delve into that before. So in that role also I ended up co-founding an internet exchange. So there was no internet exchange on the Isle of Man, and definitely was a problem in terms of you know, how basically how traffic flows around the world, and internet exchanges are a vital part of that. And so for the good of the internet, we set one up on the Isle of Man, and again, understand it gave me this really fundamental understanding of data exchange securely. And when I came to the end of my role with the telco, and I sort of I had this like moment where I was like, oh, I think I've done what I came to do here. We had worked on some incredible projects. I'd had an incredible experience, again, working with another amazing entrepreneur. And I was like, I think there's something else, but I'm not sure what it is. And so I basically I knew I had a bit of savings, and I was like, I'm just going to quit and see what else is out there. So again, I actually pretty terrified, because it's like all I knew was, and I loved my job. It wasn't the job that wasn't, that wasn't a problem. It was more, I just felt this thing of there's something else. So I'm pretty full on in terms of, like, if I'm in something, I am in it. And so I have to be out of something to be out of it, to be out
Got
of
it.
it.
Okay. Yeah.
Does
Makes
that even
sense.
make
Yeah.
sense? um, so I was like, right, I'm just going to have some space. I'm just going to have some time. Did a load of yoga, went away to France for a really long holiday. Basically was just like, let's get back to me again, like get back to what do I want to do? What are the problems I want to solve? What do I want to give back to the world? And I did loads of self-reflection about the sort of organization that I wanted to be in or be part of or start. And one of the things that really was fundamental to me was culture of a business. And I talk about culture a lot in certainly in the tech space, but cyber, especially in cyber, at that the culture of bringing yourself to work and being authentically you and being accepted for that. And how do we create these cultures that where you it's not about having a pool table or like free shit. Oh, sorry, sorry, I'm trying to swear. Free
It's quite all
stuff.
right.
Beat me out. And like, it's actually about like fundamental human nature. Like, what do we want? We want to enjoy what we do. We want to feel accepted. We want our voices to feel heard. And that's the culture that I wanted to be in or create. And I was like, right, that's number one thing. First
Mm.
thing is that was the foundation. And I was like, either one of those, that's going to be my next thing. And then as I sort of got these fundamentals of what I wanted down, then I was like, right, say what is that? What is that? Ideally, I should leverage some of this knowledge that I have in telco. I like really niche knowledge. There's not
Mm.
many people that are part of a team building a mobile network operator from scratch, or co-founding an internet exchange. So what is that, and what can we do with that? And actually, as it happens, I just talk to lots of people, and do that anyway. And someone I met had a bit of an idea and a bit of an IP, and I was like, okay, there's something here in this. And then anyway, that was really around looking at the identity layer. Looking at identity as a layer of the internet rather than a process which is often the case now, or historically when we've gone to this digitized version of KYC or know your customer or know who that person is. It's more around taking a paper process and digitizing it and replicating it that way, rather than seeing it like this is a person you need to know here and here and here, and how that is obviously how a network works, and trusting that person is the same person across that is something that telco has done. It solved that problem. It probably could have owned the identity layer back in the day when it was probably making, as an industry, far too much money on other things and they didn't need to innovate. But anyway, that's sort of the time for that is gone for telco. So actually the problem is being solved by I would say standards and interoperability. So having that net knowledge and awareness from how networks run, and then going, actually it's about people as well, and how do people trust other people over a network, and that being really fundamental to our society now, but only increasingly so, especially when we are in the age of, dare I say it, and we've been a few minutes into this podcast, but AI. I
Was
said
that
the
12
word.
minutes?
Yeah.
That's a record, I think. It's okay.
Well,
We're okay. We're in a safe place. Mm.
so yeah, so that's the sort of whistle stop, and then it was like, right, okay, so this is a bit of a seed of an idea. How do we make it happen? And making secure, efficient, inclusive are our values as a company, and mainly because the World Economic Bank did like these 10 steps of what makes digital, like what is a fundamentals for digital identity, and they've got this like charter, 10-step charter. So actually we started off with 10 values in our business
Wow.
because
Okay.
I was like, they've done a lot of work in this, the
Yeah.
World Economic Bank.
We'll just pinch that.
Let's just
Yeah. Nice.
pull this here, put it over here. And obviously like 10 values is ridiculous and far too many, but over a course of 12 months I just refine those down to like, what are they? And for the core things, it's like, obviously you've got to have security, and that's got to be number one. We are looking after people's very important data as guardians, like we can't take that, that's got to be a serious job. And then on top of that, the point of the whole thing is to be efficient, either as a business or to create efficiencies for our customers, and then inclusive from our hiring practices to we're building so we're not obviously, but we're B2B, but we've got a B2B2C app. So we've got a free downloadable identity app. And so that's got to be, if someone is going to be using it to log on to a bank, or like prove they are who they say in a bank or some vital service,
Mm.
then we've got to make that as inclusive as possible and accessible for everyone. Otherwise, we create this, increasingly big digital divide.
Got you.
So yeah,
So the problem that
yeah, the
SQR is
pillars.
looking at here is that's brilliant. Thank you for running through that. I know there's a lot more to it, and we'll get into that in a
Oh
moment. But
yeah.
I guess this is when, say, for example, I'm logging onto a bank. My bank's asking me, "Who the hell are you? How do I prove that?" In the space of, like you said before, AI, and increasingly we're seeing these deep fake things now all over the place. Is it kind of combating that problem of
Yeah,
how the hell
so
do you prove you say you are? Yeah.
proving that you are who you say you are is an increasingly big issue. So um one of our excuse me, one of our customers is a government, and they use us for proving beneficial ownership
Okay.
of their companies. So this is obviously like the fundamental issue there is around people setting up companies. They're not legitimate people, and they're trying to do nefarious things with through looking official through a company. And so that's one big sort of part of it. But then so there could be if financial institutions that are wanting to prove that their customers who they say they are. They've got a lot of anti-money laundering regulations. They've got a lot of different pressures from regulators to make sure that they know who that person is. So they've got a real drive and a real risk there. But then I think as we move, I think that as the future of identity moves, it's not just going to also be around this sort of like AML, anti-money laundering requirements, but it's actually going to be like, is that my dad that just asked me to send him 50 quid? Like, is it, or is it someone that sounds like my dad? really convincingly because they found like something on the internet that 3 seconds, I don't know what it is now, it's a very few seconds where someone can take your voice and clone your voice. um and it's
It's
like, what do
terrifying.
we start having safe words for things? I mean, like,
Yeah,
is that the
yeah,
is that
yeah,
where
yeah,
we're
yeah.
going to, like, you know, prove that it's you, Dad? Tell me something that you know, like, this is yeah, a really, really interesting time that we live in. Try not to air too much on that it's also terrifying, because it'd be nice to sleep at night.
Sure.
Um, but living in the world where consistently trying to solve that problem, and working around in an industry and around lots of other people that are solving that problem, gives me a lot of hope that um, the criminals will not win.
No, yeah, we need to be having the conversations, and I think maybe that, the fear element does need to be highlighted a little bit, just so people realize how serious this is, and it's not just, people clicking on a dodgy link in an email anymore, or it's not just businesses that get hit by this. It's the consumer, it's people, it's everyday lives.
Yeah.
So what
And
does
also, like,
go on?
sorry to flip that into also the consumer and a bit of an education piece, but also the amount of information that we give away has we're not really aware how much information we give away and how useful that is to
Mhm.
criminals. And we're sort of used to posting lots of information, you know, kids with their school stuff on, all sorts of things that we just really just innocently think,
Yeah,
oh, this is a bit of information, but it's all data that can be analyzed, and or stolen potentially if you're giving it to an insecure system or whatever. So yeah, there's a huge amount of education, I think, still to be done.
I think so. There was an advert campaign recently. I forget who it was by, but it was I think a mother and a daughter walking through like a shopping mall type thing, and there were strangers coming up and saying happy birthday to the
I saw
child, and
that.
it was to
Yeah,
highlight
yeah.
that what you post online anyone can see. And yeah, it was pretty sinister,
And also,
but equally
it was
it worked.
sinister because, yeah, absolutely. And it was because, like, it actually, if you take it to the reality of the context, someone saying that, it's weird. Like, it is a weird thing if you take it back to actually real life and what we do every day. But we don't. This is not to chastise anyone, and I certainly, I'm not a perfect person, not a perfect human being. I post so much stuff on my LinkedIn about where I am, what I'm doing. But it's we do need to think before we click, think before we post. Just that extra few seconds of, what information am I putting out there?
Yeah, I
Important.
agree. I agree. So what does SQR kind of do differently then, and what versus where we're at, with the AML, for example, regulations at the moment? How does this come in and fix the problem?
So when we launched, it was all about reusability. So a lot of the landscape was this sort of like one and done, copy and paste of a digital process, where the standards now are at a place. So identity standards have been worked on for years and years by very clever people all around the world, and they are starting to have adoption so that they can be relied on. And so that was a case of, okay, so how do we build with standards and make sure it's efficient and as easy, and that therefore has to be reusable. And so, to the individual, and I can use it here, 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 and here, but I don't have to keep doing this manual process of getting all my documents out, scanning them, doing my face, and then I do it again, and then I do it again, and then I do it again. And essentially, um, that sort of repetitive process we wanted to take away. So hence why the reusable aspect was how we sort of said, like, this is our absolute differentiator, although there are other competitors that do that as well. As we move towards building out our innovation, and I would say that certainly in this space you can't stay still in terms of what you're trying to bring out that's new. One of the things that we are focusing on as we go into 26 and 27 is enabling our customers to sort of do what they need along some guardrails. So pulling together workflows to say, this is going to be I want this segment of customers to go through this this workflow. If this happens, re-trigger another verification, or if I need to do a re-verification continuously, so something in my space has changed, so I need to collect that information again or check that that person definitely is them again. So how can we do this across the client lifecycle? And then also trying to bridge that gap between the online journey and the in-person sort of proofing journey. So we obviously we exist in all realms, online and offline and in person. And how do we, at the moment those things are very siloed, so how do we bring them together? So I won't go into too much detail about how we're planning to do that, but necessarily yeah, to information in the wrong hands. But yeah,
It's some
so
cool
that's one
stuff
of the,
under the hood.
yeah, that's what we're trying to solve in 26.
Okay, nice, nice. And so, UK government as a customer is huge. What did they
So
like
we don't have
about?
the UK government.
Sorry, sorry,
So we do have a government. We don't have the UK
sorry.
government, but we are, interesting fact. We are accredited to the UK government trust framework, which is essentially, which just so the law, so the Digital Use and Access Bill, well, Access Act actually now as it's called, now it's been passed, came into force, that sort of legalizes our as SQRs relevance in the identity space in the UK. And so we do, although they're not a customer of ours yet, we do work with the UK government. Obviously digital identity has been a hot topic in the news of late.
Yes, yeah,
And it's been really interesting to be part of that conversation, that discussion, as how did the UK government navigate it? I think there's 46 various identity providers on the trust framework, as they call it, which will be the DVS, so Digital Verification Service. I think that's the acronym.
yeah. I think I've seen this. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
get lost in the acronyms. And so uh, there are these problems are being solved by private sector, and currently the UK government has got a framework that validates that and validates them. So what I'm a big advocate for is creating a system, and one of the attractions for us as a company to be on the trust framework was for us to be trusted at government level, which is what the trust framework does, which means that we can then access information but on our end users with their consent, that then helps the economy work more efficiently and more effectively. So I like, one example that I give is if you're a charity and you are assessing whether someone's on I don't know, disability allowance or something like that, and if you could validate that they were on a PIP, which is a personal, well, something payment,
the,
individual payment or something like that.
yes, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
then and the government obviously issue that, so they've done a lot of checks there. And if we could digitize that process, then we're making the charity. We could offer that as a service to a charity, which means that obviously they don't want to collect the information, they don't want to store information on like, driver's licenses or anything like that. This is a really technical and highly secure service that they can't just manually do, but a fraud in that space is huge. And I think, like, I mean, I have not come across stats. I think it's probably pretty hard to actually say how much fraud goes in that space, because accessing services that maybe you shouldn't access, but you're ticking a box or saying, yeah, I have that, and actually you don't have that, and that organization has no means to prove it is you, and the thing that you're saying is claimed, then you could get services that you shouldn't get, which actually takes away the resource from people that should have it. So, and puts a really big burden on, I mean, I gave an example of a charity there, but there's organizations that other organizations many
Mm.
organizations that need to prove that an individual is who they say they are. And so if the UK government can trust us then to um, be connected into their system in a way where we can check that, then like that's really game changer, I think, for not only us and the other identity providers on the trust framework, but also for population, the
Yeah,
population.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's not just about a driving license or an identity, but there's so many other things that make up who we are and what we should be getting and what we should be entitled to, I suppose,
Yeah,
as a service.
absolutely. There's layers to this, and like you say, it has like real world influences and context that I think maybe sort of on the face of it people don't really think about, but then you have that conversation and you suddenly get on all these rabbit holes. I mean, we've spoken about what 5 or 6 different use cases already
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
this short space of time. And you mentioned the
yeah.
UK digital ID thing there. I did wonder whether it was going to be that or AI that came up first on this call. So AI wins this
We
time, but
tick them both though.
we've done them both. Yeah, we've covered them both off. Shelley, can I ask around? You touched on your sort of your growth and growing as a business, and we're off to the races. It seems like there's accolades coming in left, right, and centre, hiring, growing, which has been great. What's kind of been, I guess, maybe harder than you first expected, or a challenge maybe that's a bit
Um,
outside the box?
so I'm going to say mindset
Okay.
is the thing for me, and it has been one of the things that I've had to work on more than anything. And I'm like super optimistic. I'm like more,
Mm.
I'm optimistic to a fault probably. Is that's like also a negative of mine.
Okay.
But I am having that resilience of like every single day there's such a hard thing to deal with, especially when we're fundraising. It's not a cheap thing to build, it's
Mm.
not a cheap thing to do, and juggling that fundraising, operational team, hiring, the daily challenges that come in, normal day-to-day stuff that
What
any
would be some of
business
those normal things
faces.
that come through? I guess for anyone that's sort of thinking about starting their own thing, what's like I don't know. Example A would be I'm working in a corporate X already. I've had a really cool idea. It's AI identity X.
So, well, yeah, I think the main thing there is go validate on as little cash as you can.
Okay, cool.
So that's like number one. If you've got an idea, go to stress test it. How can you do that? Like you probably even ask ChatGPT, you know,
Mm.
to do, and maybe you want to get one of those where you agree that ChatGPT doesn't steal all your information, but put your idea in somewhere safe, some AI that's safe, and then ask it, what is the absolute bare minimum cash that I would need to spend to get to validate my idea. And especially if it's anything technical. I mean, now you've got Lovable and other vibe coding platforms are available, and you can go, not that difficult. You could learn how to pull that sort of stuff together from a few prompts, and which is, I think, a game changer. One of the things I think in the security industry is harder than most, or I'm going to say anything where you've got some sort of security layer. Wrap needs some sort of security layer for protection, is you can't afford to go to not prioritize that. So that is a case of, you can't just be like, I'm going to test this out, but just with 100 people's really sensitive data, so it's fine. Like one person's data is really important. So that is a tricky thing in this space. But I think if there's lots of, if you have an idea, you can go validate it really quickly nowadays with the tools that are out there, which is super cool.
Mm.
And it's also what investors are looking for. They're looking for, yes, you have an idea, but does it work in the wild? Is it actually going to be something that someone needs? Is it a real problem? And one of the things that I think I've learned over the course of fundraising, certainly, is that it is very much around the person that's leading the business, the founder, co-founders, that are going to be the ones that, why should you be why are you the people that can go do this and deliver on this, and how can you show me that? So I think having that, either investing in your personal branding like as soon as possible, even if you're in that corporate job, but what makes you the one that I'm going to give my money to if I'm an investor. And so that's really interesting. Like, how do you storytell? How do you get out? For me, and like, I am really confident, love speaking to people. I hate being the center of attention. I hate it. And actually, I've had to get over myself for that. And
Okay.
I've had to be like, no, LinkedIn, goddamn, is seeing a selfie of me every single day because I need
Yeah.
to put forward my personal brand. And unfortunately, the LinkedIn algorithm likes a face. So actually, like, that's what's going to have to happen. And so that that feeling of like, oh, I don't want to speak up, I don't want to say, I don't want to be,
Mm.
seen, I suppose, essentially. I just want to be, in the background making everything work and, doing amazing stuff. Actually, I quickly found that that was not going to be the case. So my thing about mindset, sort of coming back to my first piece, was you know fear, getting over the fear of failure, the fear of being seen to have done something that doesn't work, like that perfectionist nature, or that I don't know, if I say that or do that, is someone going to judge me? Is someone not going
Mm.
to like me? Is, there is so much. I've got this audiobook that literally have been listening to for years, and whenever I get a little bit overwhelmed, it's my go-to. Well, I've got a few go-to audiobooks, but this is all around like letting go, like
Okay.
letting go of your I suppose desire to control the outcome,
Okay.
because there is
What's it called?
so much. Do you know what? Do you know, I might have to. My phone's at the other side, so I can't quickly go and see it. It might come back to me when
That's
I've not
okay.
got so
That's
much
okay.
pressure about it. I have to remember it.
Put you on the spot there.
But if not, I'll follow up. So that specific sort of thing about changing your what, not what can you we think we can control things, and we can't. There are so many things out of our control every single day. I mean, the last time I was in a fundraising round, literally Trump had announced all of his tariffs, and I spoke to 5 investors in one week, and they were like, we really want to invest. All of them literally said this: I really want to invest in you, but I'm investing in nothing at the moment. And I was like,
Oh man.
thanks, Trump. And
Yeah.
so, that was like, I have no control over that. I have no
Yeah.
control on the outcome there. And obviously I didn't know how long it was going to go on for. The investors were like, we don't know, we're holding, like, we don't know what's going to go on, and we just need to see how this plays out. And so I remember going to the gym a lot in those few weeks to try and get my
I
like
bet. Yeah.
stress out. Um, but the what can I influence? And I suppose I can influence is keep turning up, keep knocking on doors, keep going. Hi, we're still here. Like, I know, or going back to them and saying, look, you didn't invest then because of this, but it's your position changed now. That, and not seeing it as a failure or rejection, but actually just like, you know
Mm.
let someone just say, I'm not interested, go away. And then I'll accept. Then I'll accept. I can hear your voice and not cross a boundary. So yeah, there's a lot, I think, around that mindset of yeah, what can I influence, but step away from trying to control everything.
Control the controllables. Yeah. It's huge, but it's so difficult because you're caught up in everything, and I guess it must be so easy, especially in that co-founding CEO position where you're responsible for the business and people in the business, to overthink everything or try and tackle things. And it must be a real web of what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say a mind F, but maybe I won't say
Yeah,
that. But do you know what I mean? It's
yeah, yeah,
where do you draw the line? Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
What's next for SQR? We're recording this for reference January 2026. So the next 12 months, what are we looking like here?
So we're going into another funding round, so that's exciting.
That's cool.
And yeah, I feel like a bit more well prepared this time because I've done it a few times now. So that's useful. But the I suppose the next thing for us is to keep growing. So keep growing our customer base, keep talking about the amazing things that we're doing and the customers that we do have, and keeping those well serviced and supported, and make sure that we keep our ear to ground for anything that changes, because things change so rapidly. But you can definitely expect some big releases from us. So we're looking at an update in our platform, and yeah, and really reacting and responding to the changing landscape around how much is digitizing. So the mobile driving licenses that are coming out instead of physical driving licenses, or as well as, but also, how do organizations prove those are genuine? Like, do you just walk up with your phone like that? That's not a thing. So like, how do organizations deal with the digitization of like government credentials through the eIDAS wallet and mobile driving licenses? So very much responding to that from an outsider aspect. And then we're really we're looking at some quite interesting verticals coming up this year that we think that we can add some value in around maritime. So
Wow. Okay, cool. Bit different.
yeah.
But I think it's such a ridiculously hot space at the minute, both from a security and just mainstream news perspective. So hopefully some exciting things coming down the pipe. It sounds really exciting. And thank you for fielding all the questions. I appreciate we've darted around a little bit there, but excited to get this one out.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me, James. It's been a pleasure. And I'm sick of my own voice now after after all that chat.
Not at all, not at all. Take care. Good to see you.